my own child who's accepted and has resources and is loved, still engaged in very concerning behavior. And so I think it's really important to understand too that even if you're a good parent and even if you have a close and trusting relationship, you cannot prevent all the harm that your child might experience.
Welcome to This Way Up. We are bringing you engaging, informative, and inspiring conversations surrounding all aspects of mental health from the perspective of us as parents and caregivers. I'm Andrea Ninigian.
And I'm Emmy Waters. When someone you care about is struggling with their mental health, this can be an incredibly stressful and challenging time. So we're here to provide valuable resources to support you as you navigate this journey.
Today's guest, Marie Hommel, shares with all of us a beautiful story of the relationship between her and her transgender daughter, Ashley.
Yeah, and I think everyone will really appreciate hearing about the trust that they built in their relationship over years that allowed such incredibly honest and open communication. Let's hear more from Marie.
Welcome, Marie. This morning we have Marie, who is the Chief of Agency Operations of the County of San Diego, and she works with teams of social workers to support children, youth, and families. Marie is an expert in child abuse and neglect. In 2006, Marie and her husband, Mike, and then 5-year-old son, Jacob, welcomed a baby boy into the family. The baby was named Austin, and in 2021, Austin came out as a transgender. The name and gender has been legally changed to Ashley Jules Hommel. Ashley is now 17 years old and has plans to transition via surgery in 2024. Welcome, Marie. We are so excited to have you on this morning.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. This is exciting.
And you know, Marie, I know you personally, and I'm going to just share that. And one of the reasons I really wanted you as a guest was because I have admired how you have supported Ashley, you know, as we would with children, but also from making sure that, you know, she's feeling secure and that her mental health is taken care of. You have just been a phenomenal inspiration, I think, to any parent as they're watching their child go through something that maybe they don't understand or they want to support them through.
Oh, I appreciate that.
I'd love to have you share a little bit about your background with Ashley and your family.
Sure. So when I was pregnant with Ashley, I went in to do the ultrasound and they had actually told me at that time, oh, you're having a boy. And this is such a funny memory, but I cried. I really wanted a girl. I really wanted a daughter. I had lost my mother when I was very young, and I always thought I was going to have a daughter at some point. And I did feel that we were probably going to have 2 children. So I was a little disappointed. I mean, I got over it quickly and had a beautiful baby boy and was totally happy being a boy mom and didn't have any issues. But I do remember feeling a little bit of grief at that moment. So Ashley was born in 2006, and she was a very striking baby. She had bright red hair and blue eyes, and she just attracted a lot of attention in public because of her unusual appearance. And she was just delightful. She was an easygoing child, a very happy child, and just really was easy, particularly in comparison to my son, who was all alpha male, very aggressive, you know, always getting into things, always getting in trouble, breaking things. We had a lot of behavioral things that we had to manage with our older son. And Ashley was kind of the antithesis of that. She was a very easygoing little boy, and we just loved her and we took care of her. And we did think early on that perhaps there was something there along the spectrum, possibly of sexuality. We weren't really thinking in terms of gender, that possibly she was not going to be heterosexual, but we really weren't sure. And we didn't really do anything one way or the other, just sort of watched it unfold. And so we were, perhaps some other parents can relate to this, we were surprised in 2021 when she came to me. And just to give you a little bit of background on that, COVID had hit in 2020. The kids had been pulled out of school, and she was going through a very serious depression. And my husband and I were not sure what to do, how to handle it, how to manage it. It had been through most of middle school. And we knew she was being bullied because we did get calls from the school about that. And what is interesting about Ashley is, and a lot of people misinterpret kids who get bullied in this way, she's not weak. She's not someone who doesn't stand up for herself. So she would very much fight back. And sometimes she would be in trouble too, because she would get aggressive. It was definitely not her instigating it, but it was a lot of children calling her gay. And she felt like this was just offensive and it did not identify who she was. And today she now understands and articulates that the reason it was so hurtful is not because being called gay is a bad thing in her mind. It was because it wasn't the right label for her and she couldn't understand it. She understood that she was attracted to boys, but she did not think of herself as gay and she could not quite square all of that. That's the way she describes it today, that it was felt just wrong to be called gay. Again, not because she didn't like gay people or gay kids or whatever. She was totally open to that. I think it was more the label was incorrect and she couldn't figure out why, and it was upsetting to her. She just gained a lot of weight because of the depression. So we thought maybe it was because she was just a little overweight, that she was unhappy. We weren't really sure what was going on. We offered her counseling. We offered her, to get more involved in other types of things. She was playing clarinet at the time. She's a very talented musician. And so we spent a lot of, energy on that with her. And then ultimately, when COVID hit, she seemed happier to be out of school without the pressure of being bullied. And I thought it was fascinating because most kids didn't do well. And here's my child who started doing incredibly well. She started doing even better in school. And she was really able to manage the online situation. And she could be with kids when she wanted to be with kids, and she could be on her own when she wanted to be on her own. And I think this was a huge gift because ultimately, I think it helped her understand what was going on and felt incongruous for her. And she came to me in 2021. I was working from home at the time because of COVID, and sat down and I really thought in my head, this is the moment. She's going to tell me she's gay. Finally, we can all just be upfront about it. And, I really did believe it because I felt it coming. There were some things leading up to that point. She had lost a lot of weight. She had been coming to my gym. She had been doing some things. She seemed to be feeling better. And I did think that was just giving her the confidence to come out. And so she sat down and she said, I need to talk to you about something. And I said, what is it? And she said, I have been Googling hormone treatment. And I just, because I am a social worker, I just kind of took it in stride. And I said, okay, well, what do you mean by that? What are you thinking? And she said, I think I'd be happier as a girl.
Oh.
And so that was the first time it was ever spoken out loud to me. And I took that in and processed it as, for a time. And I immediately the next day started making phone calls, seeing if I could get some appointments for her to kind of further look into what this meant for her. And so one of the first things I did was I contacted Rady's. They have a gender affirming clinic here in the county of San Diego. They have the only gender affirming clinic for youth in San Diego. And so it is the primary juncture for most children who are transgender.
Can I take a pause real quick? Because I just want to interject the fact that you must have built a lifelong relationship with Ashley of trust, because at such a young age, she felt comfortable coming to you and sharing something that was very, very intimate. And I know this is a very big, broad question, but how do you think you built that trust?
I think a lot of it for me is, I became a social worker, not so I could learn the skills, but because I already had them and I needed to develop them further. And I think a lot of people in the helping profession do this. I think we have some natural skills, and then we come and we learn more and we become better and more skilled at understanding dynamics of relationships. So that all being said, I think with both of my children, I am extremely accepting. I don't have a preconceived notion of who they are or how they should be or what they should do in their lives. And I've never been the type of parent who pressures them in any way. And sometimes it can be a weakness. Sometimes maybe I needed to have set a bigger boundary than I did because I'm so accepting. Oh, I can understand why you did that. I can understand why you feel that way. And I think that a lot of us in the helping profession have this problem. We're often accused of being too easygoing on our children or whatever. I think the relationship I built with Ashley and with my son is just, I'm going to accept you no matter what. And I'm going to understand the mistakes that you make. And I'm going to try to help, but I'm not going to try to intervene because I know intervening is not very effective, particularly with teenagers. Like it really, it's this whole thing. Like we can't tell our teenagers, oh, you can't be friends with that person. It doesn't work. So I often feel like parents are often on the wrong track in that regard. I am like, okay, I don't love that that's your friend, but we're going to figure out how to make this friend safe for you, is the way I see it. And so I think that developed a lot of trust with her. And for whatever reason, I am extremely close to her. We are very, very close as mother and daughter. And I've always felt that with her. And so I sometimes look back to when she was a boy and how different her relationship was with her versus her brother. Her brother, I'm very close with. I'm very close with my oldest son, but he is very much different in the way that he interacts with me. And now that he's an adult male, it's even more different. He does not look to me as a source of, what he needs. He's very independent. He looks to himself and he tends to be the protector, even in the relationship with me. So he has developed that sort of mentality that you see in a lot of boys. And so our relationship's different, but I've always felt very close to her. I've always felt like she can tell me anything. She has not always felt she can tell me everything. And that's another thing I'm very accepting of. I'm like, okay, well, you don't have to tell me that now, like, or ever.
Right. That's a beautiful gift, actually, to give your child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is to understand that. I heard, other than that last thing, I heard three things in there. One, you guys ever see that, I don't know if it's a meme or something where they say that your life's dissatisfaction comes from when your expectations don't meet what actually is occurring, or the biggest grief comes from that. I think we all tend to have these expectations, or many of us do, and that's where things can get muddy. And you saying that you just really didn't have those expectations of your kids, not that you didn't have any expectations of your kids, but their life is theirs.
Yeah.
And I think that is so important, is recognizing and being able to establish that their life is theirs, even if it's not the life that you had originally thought it was going to be, right? And I think that adds to a strengthening of a relationship.
Well, and I think what's really interesting, and you pointing that out, Andrea, is this idea that I love this line that you sometimes hear when you're linked up to the transgender community. If you've met one transgender person, you've met one transgender person.
Oh, I love it.
And I think it's this idea that is true no matter what. And it's especially true when we try to lump together and categorize and put people in boxes. And I'm very resistant to that. And I always have been. Like, individual differences matter. And I think that there's a lot of, I love that we're having this discussion today too, because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there about who a transgender person is. And there's a lot of lumping together. And there's this huge spectrum, just like everything. And I think my daughter really, kind of shows how that's so very, very true, and how there are biases even within the community. There are biases against the community, and there's biases within the community.
Right.
And so I think that that's part of what's so interesting about these types of complex youth issues.
Well, and I think even just in general, if you're grouping in general, you're not identifying who and the special traits about any person. And, let's take a very generic approach to this. You've got a family who has a family business, and you expect that child to just get into the family business. You're setting up a place for hurt, disappointment, and future conflict between the parent and the child, and you're not supporting what it is that the person they truly want to be.
Right.
And,
right.
Obviously now that is much more complex as you get into the transgender community. But I think that as parents, we really need to put that separation in place and say, I'm going to guide them so that they are safe. And that was the second point that you brought up, is you said, you may not like this friend, but I'm going to find a way for you to be friends with that person safely. I thought, wow, that's a very interesting point, is that our job as parents is to put them into environments that are safe for them without trying to mold them into who we want them to be. So I thought that was a very interesting point that you made. And probably one, getting back to my question about how you established that relationship with her, she felt safe because you always put her in a place that that you knew, that she knew that you loved her and that you were going to keep her safe.
Yeah. No, and which reminds me of like a recent event with her that was extremely difficult. And just to be clear, I've cleared everything I say with my daughter before I do these things. She's very open, but early in September of this past year, she came to me one night. It was right after school started, and came in my bedroom, and she said, "I've done something really bad. I've done something really, really bad." And I was like, okay, I was asleep, turn on the light, and I was like, what is it? And she says, I've cut myself. And, again, the mom in me is horrified.
Just to clarify, cutting like as in
self-harming.
Self-harming. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that,
And because I thought my acceptance of her and my closeness of her, my belief system before that moment was, I've got her in all the right services. I'm paying attention to her. I'm supporting her. Her dad supports her. All these people support her. She's not going to commit suicide. She's not going to hurt herself. She's not going to use drugs. She's not going to do all these things that you hear about are way more prevalent in the transgender community because of a lot of the societal pressures, maybe if a family's not accepting things of that nature. And then my own child, who's accepted and has resources and is loved, still engaged in very concerning behavior. And so I think it's really important to understand too, that even if you're a good parent and even if you have a close and trusting relationship, you cannot prevent all the harm that your child might experience. And it was very devastating to me to acknowledge that I'm not everything for her.
Mm-hmm.
She still experiences pain that she doesn't know what to do with. She still copes with a teenage mind. And, there's still work to always be done in that area. And I can't prevent her from her worst instincts, that she's got to work on that herself. And I can only guide her, help her, and tell her what I think, and then hope that she does it. Again, creating safety for her. How do I create an environment where, I was glad she felt safe enough to come to me. And how do I keep her from engaging in this behavior? And anyone who is the parent of a teenager probably knows it's extremely difficult. They're going to do things that are unsafe. They're going to do things that you did that were unsafe.
Yeah. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah. Right. And so how do I just make them do it with more awareness than I had, so they remain safer? I think we're all just miracle products when we get to this age of just understanding, wow, that was pretty risky. I shouldn't have done that. But then you have a child who's like, that's risky. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And I'll let you know.
Yeah. It's all about leaving those lines of communication open and establishing the trust, which you speak so well to.
Right.
Curating these valuable conversations is really about our shared passion for promoting mental wellness. Behind the scenes, however, there are some platforms and systems we utilize that cost money that help bring these episodes to you.
If you found value in our conversations and feel inspired to support, consider making a donation. Whether it's the price of your morning cup of coffee or more, your contribution directly supports our ability to keep connecting, sharing, and growing. Please visit our website at thiswayuppodcast.com to support this community. We thank you and we appreciate you.
What did your conversations look like prior to that, when Ashley was going through a lot of the depression and some of those mental health struggles?
So a lot of Ashley's mental health is, first of all, I don't know how much of it is just organic or runs through my family. I definitely have my own issues with depression. My mother certainly did. My mother died way too young. I think part of it was related to her mental health. That's not to say she committed suicide. She did not. She died of natural causes, but I think the mental health state didn't help her to maintain health.
Oh.
Right.
And so as an adult, I've been very focused on how I maintain my own mental health so that I don't, have major medical issues too young and things of that nature. And how do I remain present here on this earth with my children as long as I can? And so with Ashley, it's two-pronged. I don't know which parts of her, because she has been diagnosed with depression and anxiety. I'm not sure what part of that is related to gender dysmorphia and which part is organic, because it seems to be a thread through my family. So there are two things too that Ashley likes to deal with. She has a therapist who's very focused on transgender issues, and sometimes that therapist isn't working for her. She kind of comes in and out of therapy because sometimes her issues aren't related to gender dysmorphia. Sometimes her issues are just related to being a teen,
just life, yeah,
feeling overwhelmed, not knowing who she is, what she wants to do, and also her deep frustration that being transgender, it seems to be taking a long time, right? And that's one of the things that people don't know is there's no fast track to gender integration. And I think that's by design. I think that professionals in this arena want to be very careful that we are dealing with a youth who is certain versus uncertain.
You have two therapists for her that focus on two different avenues. So basically one is for
transgender issues and gender dysmorphia. The other is through rabies, and it's a therapist every child has to see before they can seek medical treatment. She doesn't go to that therapist and say, I'm really mad at my mom today because of this.
Right.
That therapist's job is to check in to see her readiness for the next stages of the process. So once that therapist signs off, she was able to begin hormone treatment. And Ashley did go through a period where her original pronouns were he, they, and then she transitioned to she, they. And then right after she started hormone treatment, she said, I want female pronouns, she, her, hers. That's who I am. That's who I'm going to be. And so even she kind of transitioned as she started going through the process and started kind of letting her identity go as a boy.
So that changing of identity obviously has got significant impacts on a number of different things. So she came, then you decided to put her in with a therapist to help with that, but then also the whole other mess that teenagers get into. And so this therapist focuses on things like the cutting and some of the other things.
Correct. And she also has, a lot of other people on her team, so to speak. She has her, original pediatrician she's had since she was a baby. She has a psychiatrist who prescribes medication to her. And she has her surgeon as part of her team. We've met with her surgeon already for next year. And so her team kind of develops as you go along. And so, and all of the team members have to write, and she also has her endocrinologist, who is the person managing her hormones. That's also through Rady's Children's.
Yeah, there's a lot to navigate. And you just reminded me that you're tracking a lot of new concepts and a lot of doctors and a lot of practitioners managing the information coming in and even the scheduling of appointments, managing your daughter's mental health, your mental health. How did you, as the mom, take care of yourself? How do you manage? How do you cope?
Oh, used to be by working out. That's a great question. And I think that that's so important. Emmy is sort of the self-care piece of this. I can't make my daughter happy. I can't make her life perfect. And I love her so much and so deeply, like any other parent. And I want her to be happy and to have a fulfilling life. And I see where it's often not missing the mark. And it's profoundly sad for me. Because you just, as a parent, you just can't be everything to your child, even when you're close, even when you're supporting. And so for me, self-care is extraordinarily important. And I've had to redefine that for myself these past few months because I have been unable to be in the gym. And I think a lot of it for me is just I'm a bit of an introvert. I spend time alone. I listen to podcasts. It is actually one of my favorite pastimes. So once I figure out yours, it'll be great. I'll have a whole new vein to tap, right? And I just love to kind of be in my own world and be in my own head. And that really relaxes me a lot. And right now, because it's not the gym, it's just getting up early. I used to get up at 4 to go to the gym. Now I get up at 4 and I just kind of listen to podcasts, do Wordle, like drink a cup of coffee, sit with my cats, just kind of set myself for the day. And most importantly, I just try to remind myself that I'm not in control of anything.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And I'm only in control of myself. And I want myself to be as peaceful as possible. And it's hard. And Andrea knows me well. I have a very intense personality. I'm not always relaxed. It's very hard for me to get to that Zen place. And so I spend a lot of time now that I have the extra time just focusing on what's good in my life. It's very challenging, for any parent out there with a teen. And then you add on whatever extra thing you're dealing with, because every single teen, it's not just being a teen.
Mm-hmm.
There's other things that are happening. And it's difficult. And it was difficult with my son. And I had sought therapy with my son because he was not doing what I wanted him to do, right? He was not living up to my expectations. I know, shocking. And I thought, wow, that was hard. It'll be so great because Austin, former name, was such an easy child.
Yeah.
These were not going to be issues. And sure enough, that's not how it works. So I just really, the other thing I do for self-care is I just reach out to other people and, find the right supportive group of people to be around. And as I get older, I do definitely put more arm's length between me and someone I view as not being a positive support. And I've done that through Ashley a lot. Actually, it's really interesting. I've done that through Ashley a lot because I do finally have a line in the sand. I used to not have many boundaries. It's like, everybody's great. Everyone has something worth loving and caring about. Social worker to my heart,
Right.
But if you can't be on board with my daughter, you cannot be in my orbit.
Yeah. Choosing your community.
You bring up the importance of having a community and a supportive community. And I think that's why Emmy and I even started this, was because I think the crux of self-care is around people who understand you and support you. And I think so often as moms that where our children are struggling with whatever, we hibernate, we kind of go in and we cut off that important community. Or we do what you and I do, which is open our doors to everybody on a very superficial level. And I think that, having that community that understands you and allows you to speak vulnerably is really, really important.
In my brain, this is along the same lines, but when I say it out loud, it might sound like a quick, hard pivot. So I apologize. But something else I was wondering, that Andrea and I have talked a lot about, that we would even make its own episode on how you communicate or not communicate with your spouse as you navigate these conversations, all the mental health struggles that you've seen Ashley go through, or your own, or really any of our kids. Can you speak a little bit to how you and your husband work through those conversations and situations together?
Yeah, that's a great question too. I think that, I feel really fortunate. I have I have a great husband. He we both have very intense personalities, and somehow we've made it work. And I think what's interesting is, I know, believe me.
He's listening right now.
I know, right? Where is he? I think what's really interesting is, everything with him is different. But one of the main ways that this has gone down, so to speak, in our family is he has really let me take the lead when it comes to my daughter. And I think that that's been important. I have the closer relationship. I have the requisite knowledge to get the resources that we need. And I think that he definitely has his point of view. It is sometimes different than mine. He worries about her mental health in a different way than I do. So, for example, if she's going through a pretty dark time, there are lots of behavioral indicators. Her room will be a mess. She will sleep more. She will disengage from things that we've signed her up for, which is frustrating to my husband. Number one, we've signed her up for something. And number two, he's thinking about the financial responsibility of raising this family and moving us forward. And so for him, it's a frustration that she is not going to the gym because we paid for it, or going to her piano lesson because we paid for it. And so he kind of sees it more as like, those kind of behavioral indicators frustrate him more than they do me, because I see it more like this is about her depression. We need to figure out what's going on. We need to get her back on track. And for the most part, he follows my lead. That's not to say we don't have some very deep and difficult conversations around what we want for her. So that being said, I think what's really important for us, or what has been important in our marriage, is first of all, just the commitment that we have to staying together and to being together and to working through these issues. I married someone who I can say, this is where I need you to be. And in the moment, he'll be like, I'm not going to be there. But he has the ability to go back and process and come back to the table. And I think I do as well, because he's often had to say to me, you're being too aggressive. You're being, you're not hearing me, or whatever. And I just think that part of it is, we all like to say, well, it comes down to communication, and it does, but it also comes down to time. Like sometimes I just have to give him time to kind of come to his own understanding. And sometimes he has to give me time to calm down. Again, I have an intense personality. I come at things very hard. And sometimes he just recognizes that, and he'll say, I'm going to step back from you and we're going to revisit. And his biggest fear is a very different fear than the one I have about her. I have a lot of fears about her being attacked or abused or harassed when I'm not there, like actual physical safety issues, because transgender people are twice as likely to be attacked violently, to be raped, to be misused, or to use drugs and to suffer from more significant mental health issues. And so for me, that is the big worry, right? Are any of those things going to happen to her? And is she going to be cared for by a boyfriend? She very much wants a boyfriend. By a boyfriend or a man who's going to be sophisticated enough to also manage the transgender issue. My husband's concern is more, are there any men out there who are going to want to be with her long term? The pool is much smaller. And is it, so if the pool is smaller, is she going to get a quality man? That's his worry. That does not worry me. I believe there are plenty of men out there who will be able to navigate that and be sophisticated enough to accept it. And she's already had some, she's been on a date. She's kissed a boy. She's done things that are, typical of girls her age. So I know it's out there. And I also believe that teenage boys are not really, by and large, ready. So there aren't a lot of people right now who are totally open to this. But as she gets older, I think it'll be easier. I think there will be more men who are sophisticated enough to be a partner with her. So that's what I worry about. My husband worries about, are they out there? And, we just kind of navigate it together. And people always ask me, because he was a former Marine, again, this is not the family you would have thought would have a transgender child. And he's never once been anything but supportive of her from the very beginning. He's always looking to figure out ways to help her and get her the things she needs.
So you each have your roles.
Yeah.
And it balances out. I appreciate that you share all that, because, and all of this really just a look into your lives and in these very tender spaces. It's so generous of you to let us in like that, and to have the opportunity to see how your larger family works in such a complete, loving, highly communicative, trusting way. It's very inspirational.
Yeah.
Well, Marie, I have really appreciated, like Emmy said, you went to a vulnerable place, you shared your story. And I think that I just admire you and Mike. I really do. And
Aw.
of course, Ashley, just adore her too. So
Yeah.
Yeah, she is one, as you know, she's funny and she's charming and she's beautiful. And so there's a lot of charisma there that she has. And I think it's really going to carry her really far.
Yeah.
you keep hanging out there. Make sure you get her through all the other teenage stuff that we have to get through. You've got it. Well, that frontal lobe I keep hearing isn't developed until 25, and then I heard 28. So we've still got several
I'm
years.
54 if we're looking at my
I agree with you on that.
Yeah. Aw, thank you so much, Marie.
Thank you for tuning in to today's conversation. To join our community and access more valuable resources, please visit our website at thiswayuppodcast.com.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share this with a friend. And to stay connected, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Listen to This Way Up.